Hello there and good evening. I'm Karim Zachary and you're watching World News Program on All 24 News Channel live from Algiers. Next up are the headlines. Dozens were killed in new Zionist raids on Gaza. Hamas backs Trump's plan in principle as Europe expands its arms embargo amid anti-genocide protests worldwide. Mass rallies in Morocco enter day 7 demanding Akhnouch's ouster. In France, the diaspora condemns the medicine and harsh prison terms for peaceful protesters. Also in our news, the Sahrawi Republic slams an EU-Morocco trade deal, calling it illegal. Polisario warns it will go to international court for that matter. And later on, Zelensky says dozens hurt in a Russian strike on a city train. Munich airport reopens after a drone alert, and Putin warns of fallout if Russian oil is cut off. Welcome back to the details. It's great to have you with us tonight. First off in our news, dozens of Palestinians were killed and wounded between Friday and Saturday in continued Zionist attacks targeting displaced families across the Gaza Strip. Medical sources say 46 bodies, mostly women and children, were recovered after heavy shelling hit homes and tents in Gaza City's Atufah neighborhood. The Nasser Medical Complex reported 5 more martyrs, including 2 children killed in the Mawasi area of Khan Yunis. And in central Gaza, 2 others were shot dead near the so-called Natsarim axis, one of them as he waited for aid. The World Health Organization says 400 people in Gaza have died from malnutrition, including 101 children, 80 of them under 5. Severe shortages of therapeutic foods and limited space to expand treatment are compounding the crisis, with only 4 malnutrition centers still operating in the Strip. The details with Sahara Janina.
In this therapeutic nutrition ward at Al-Auda Hospital, Amina lies in bed with her baby. During her pregnancy, she was severely malnourished. Therefore, the result is agonizing. Her little boy, Shahir, is now suffering from acute malnutrition.
During my pregnancy, delivery, and even after, life was extremely hard. I lost so much weight because there simply wasn't enough food. I dropped to 47 kilos and had a very difficult birth. My baby came into this world weak and malnourished. His condition is very serious. There is nothing to eat, so I don't have milk to feed him. Without breastfeeding, he has no immunity. He is defenseless against infections.
Amina is terrified for her son. At 4 months old, Shahir cannot even sit up because malnutrition has robbed him of his strength. This silent killer has already claimed the lives of 101 children in Gaza. 80 of them were under the age of 5.
As you can see, my baby is so weak. If I told him like this, he can't support himself. He has no immunity, nothing to eat. Look at his hand, there is no muscle left. A baby his age should be able to sit, but not mine. His condition is extremely critical. What comes next will be far worse than we've already endured. We are truly afraid for him.
This therapeutic feeding center, one of only 4 still operating in Gaza, treats children on the brink of death. Doctors begin with life-saving stabilization, then start nutritional rehabilitation until the child is strong enough to continue treatment. But critical shortages of therapeutic food are pushing the system to the edge.
We urgently need more specialized nutritional supplements for children and for pregnant and breastfeeding mothers. It's a vicious cycle. When a pregnant woman is malnourished, the risk of miscarriage rises. Premature births become emergencies. A malnourished mother may not survive labor, and newborns are often underweight. Then, during breastfeeding, the mother cannot provide enough milk. The baby is left undernourished from the very start.
Meanwhile, the ongoing displacement orders in Gaza City are disrupting the implementation of aid programs, leaving thousands of children at even greater risk of preventable death.
And in a related development, Hamas has given initial approval to U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to stop the war in Gaza. In a Friday statement, the movement said it held broad consultations before taking what it called a responsible position to end Israeli aggression. Hamas also expressed readiness to release all prisoners and hand over Gaza's administration to an independent Palestinian body formed through national consensus with Arab and Islamic backing.
Hamas announces its agreement to release all prisoners held by the occupation, both the living and the deceased, according to the exchange formula outlined in President Trump's proposal, provided that the necessary field conditions for the exchange are met. In this context, the movement emphasizes its readiness to immediately enter negotiations through mediators to discuss the details. Hamas also reiterates its approval to transfer the administration of the Gaza Strip to a Palestinian body of independent technocrats based on national Palestinian consensus and with the support of Arab and Islamic states. Regarding other matters mentioned in President Trump's proposal that concern the future of the Gaza Strip and the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, these are linked to a unified national position grounded in relevant international laws and resolutions. They will be discussed within a comprehensive Palestinian national framework in which Hamas will participate and contribute responsibly.
And in response, U.S. President Donald Trump has welcomed Hamas's initial approval of his plan to end the war on Gaza, saying the group is now ready for lasting peace. In a video posted on Truth Social, Trump urged Israel to immediately stop its bombing of the Strip and praised Hamas's decision to release all Israeli prisoners. He also thanked several Arab and Muslim leaders for supporting his plan to restore peace in the Middle East.
I want to thank the countries that helped me put this together: Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and so many others. So many people fought so hard. This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents and having some of the hostages, unfortunately, you know the condition they're in.
And after this development, the reactions kept coming. Meanwhile, several European countries, including Britain, France, Ireland, Italy, and Germany, have welcomed Hamas's acceptance of the Trump plan to halt the war in Gaza. European leaders say it offers the best chance for peace and are urging all sides to act quickly, release prisoners, and ensure aid reaches the Strip. Turkey has also welcomed Hamas's response to U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza. Speaking at a ceremony in Istanbul, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Hamas's move shows its readiness for peace and urged Israel to immediately stop its attacks on the Strip.
We welcome the response that Hamas gave to Mr. Trump's peace plan, as it is done so many times in the past. Hamas has shown it is ready for peace. Thereby a window of opportunity has opened for permanent peace in our region. It is very important in this respect for Israel to stop its attacks immediately.
In the same context, the Dutch government says it will keep its ban on exporting F-35 spare parts to the Zionist entity, despite a Supreme Court ruling allowing it to lift the restriction. In a statement on Friday, The Hague said it would be illogical to resume exports under the current conditions, stressing the urgent need for a ceasefire to end the violence and civilian suffering. For her part, Spain's Deputy Prime Minister Yolanda Díaz has urged the European Union to suspend all partnership agreements with the Zionist entity. Speaking at a press conference on Friday, she called for tougher action against the occupation over its ongoing genocidal war in Gaza, violations of international law, and attacks on foreign activists, including Spaniards. Diaz also slammed Europe's double standard, sanctioning Russia while turning a blind eye to the Zionist entity. Thousands marched across the globe voicing solidarity with Gaza and demanding an end to Israel's genocidal war on the besieged enclave. The details in this report with Sofian Kenturi.
Across Europe, tens of thousands marched on Saturday, denouncing the aggression on Gaza and the Zionist deadly raid on humanitarian flotilla. In Madrid and Lisbon, crowds waved Palestinian flags and called for an immediate end to the bloodshed. Message echoed across several European capitals.
The message is that people are watching genocide happen, that international law is being completely cast aside, and that our governments are doing nothing to stop the genocide or to free the people who were arrested in a global act of solidarity. And that is the message. We want freedom for everything and everyone, and I think this is a struggle not only for Portuguese citizens but for the whole world. And what is happening is very frightening.
In Dublin, protesters rallied in solidarity with Palestinians and condemned the Zionist interception of an aid flotilla bound for Gaza. In Rome, demonstrations entered the fourth straight day. As anger grew over detention of flotilla activists, organizers hope to draw up to 1 million participants.
We've seen in every country right across Europe huge demonstrations, yet governments have failed to act. So people power and pressure from below, I think, is the best motor for change, and I think it's the one thing that can break our government's complicity. So we're encouraging people to stay out on the streets, keep mobilising, and let's make those demonstrations as big as possible.
In Paris, the streets from Place de la République to Bastille filled with banners and Palestinian flags. Many protesters rejected US President Donald Trump's peace plan, accusing it of marginalizing Palestinian rights and legitimizing the occupation.
We don't believe it. We don't care about Donald Trump. We want the total liberation of Palestine. He's not the one who runs the world. He's not the one who dictates to us what he wants and what he doesn't want. We are already used to this.
The wave of protests came as Hamas signaled readiness to accept key parts of Trump's proposal, including a ceasefire, withdrawal of occupation forces, and a hostage exchange. While Trump urged the Zionist entity to halt its bombardment on Gaza, despite that call, Zionist airstrikes continued on Saturday, killing several people and fueling renewed outrage across the continent.
Meanwhile, London police detained hundreds of pro-Palestine protesters at Trafalgar Square, where demonstrators rallied in support of the Ban Palestine Action movement. 6 were arrested after raising a banner on Westminster Bridge near Parliament.
I'm disgusted by the police, actually. They shouldn't be arresting non-violent protesters here. We have a right to protest, and Palestine Action is not a violent organisation. It should never have been prescribed in the first place. They should be arresting the real criminals, which is the people colluding with the genocide, which includes our government, unfortunately.
Well, I'm absolutely devastated at what happened in Manchester. I'm equally devastated about what's going on in Gaza, and the 200,000 people have been murdered, and probably more, basically in my name. So because I'm a Jew and because I'm the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, I feel compelled to come and do whatever I can to support people who are trying to stop this genocide.
In Tunis, similarly, thousands rallied at Republic Square to denounce the ongoing Zionist aggression and support the Gaza aid flotilla. Protesters condemned the abduction of flotilla members in international waters and slammed the international community's silence on the occupation's crimes. And on Friday night, major Moroccan cities saw massive anti-corruption protests for the 7th straight day. Hundreds gathered outside Parliament chanting for freedom, dignity, and social justice. The details with Salman Asib now.
For the 7th straight day, anger continues to grip the streets. Moroccans remain steadfast in their peaceful uprising against corruption In an unprecedented wave of nighttime demonstrations, thousands have flooded the streets of major cities across the country. In Rabat, outside the Parliament Dome, crowds chanted for freedom and dignity.
We are peaceful young people. We want dialogue. We do not encourage violence. We want a political system free from corruption. We want to fight corruption and hold all those responsible to account.
In Tangier, as in other cities, peaceful young protesters were met with violence, beaten with batons, and arbitrarily arrested without distinctions, fueling a deep sense of injustice and resentment. In Marrakesh, demonstrators demanded the immediate release of everyone detained during the peaceful marches that began a week ago.
We call for the release of the people who were arrested during the previous peaceful marches. They all must be freed.
Similar scenes played out in Casablanca, Fez, and Meknes, where shared frustrations drove angry young people into the streets to protest poor governance and corruption. They're not just angry, they're determined to keep their movement alive until their demands are met.
We are here to express our legitimate and rightful demands. We will continue on the same path in the coming days. We will not stop until our demands are met.
On one side stands a conscious, peaceful youth, unwavering in its demands. On the other, the Marsen, which has closed the door to dialogue, choosing instead intimidation, arbitrary arrests, and sheer neglect. The crackdown has now turned deadly, with at least 3 protesters reportedly killed so far.
On a related note, hundreds of Moroccans in France marched on Saturday to denounce the Marsen regime's crackdown on protesters. They called for the government's resignation over its failure to improve health and education and condemned the violent suppression of peaceful demonstrations. In another development, the Court of First Instance in Agadir, Morocco, sentenced a protester to 4 years in prison on Friday for taking part in the ongoing peaceful marches, according to Sawt al-Maghrib. The Moroccan human rights space reported that over 270 people, including 39 minors, have been brought before the court in connection with the so-called Generation Z protests demanding political, economic, and social reforms.
We are here before the criminal court at the Palace of Justice because the demonstrators were arrested following the recent protests. They were charged with things we still do not understand, and we want to know the reason of their arrest. These are young people who only want to express their right, and they did not use any illegal expressions.
They arrested my son, who is 15 years old, in the neighborhood where we live. My son has been kept here in this place for 3 days. Why? Why did my son do? We did nothing against the country or the law. My son is not a criminal. Our children are young. Their place is in school, not in prison.
And in another development, Sahrawi Foreign Minister Mohamed Yaslam Bassi denounced attempts to overturn the European Court of Justice's ruling, urging EU states to respect European law. Speaking at the closing of the 22nd Africa-Nordic Foreign Ministers meeting, he said Europe's values should outweigh any economic deals tainted by the suffering of victims from occupied Western Sahara. Meanwhile, the Polisario Front vowed to challenge the new EU-Morocco agreement on Western Sahara's resources, calling it a blatant breach of international law and prior court rulings. In a statement on Friday, it said it will again turn to European courts to defend the Sahrawi people's rights.
Based on the rulings issued in 2024 which enshrined the Sahrawi people's access to European justice, the Polisario Front announces that it will pursue all appropriate legal avenues with determination and discernment. Meanwhile, as the ratification process begins, the Polisario Front solemnly calls on the European authorities on behalf of the Sahrawi people to reject the conclusion of this new agreement, which violates the right to self-determination and destabilizes the UN process by encouraging the Moroccan occupier in its headlong rush forward.
The Polisario Front accused the European Commission of persisting in its illegal stance by refusing to negotiate directly with it as the sole legitimate representative of the Sahrawi people.
Instead of opening direct negotiations with the Polisario Front, which was the only way to ensure compliance with the court's rulings, the European Commission persists in acting unlawfully, condemning the European Union to repeat the mistakes of the past. However, this arbitrary method of handling the situation only reflects a profound weakness in the face of the Moroccan occupation's confusion, as it seeks to buy a few more months, when everyone knows that European involvement represents a dead end, which has already been rejected by the court's rulings.
And in another news story, at the 22nd Africa-Nordic ministerial meeting, Algeria renewed its goal to complete the decolonization process in Africa. Algerian Secretary of State for African Affairs Selma Bakhtamansouri, who co-chaired the session with Norway's Foreign Minister Espen Barth-Eide, stressed the urgent need to reform the UN Security Council to ensure fair African representation and end the continent's historical exclusion. Moving on now to another topical news story. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said a Russian drone strike hit a railway station in Sumy, injuring over 30 people, including civilians bound for Kiev. He urged Europe and the US to act decisively against Moscow, not just issue statements. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry said it downed 314 Ukrainian drones and destroyed several bombs and missiles within 24 hours, adding its forces struck energy sites supplying Ukraine's defense industry. And in a related story, Munich Airport, Germany's second busiest, resumed flights Saturday morning after a shutdown on Friday evening over new drone sightings, the second incident in as many days. Operations restarted at 7 a.m. following a suspension that forced 23 flight diversions and led to 58 cancellations and delays. And finally, in this file, President Vladimir Putin warned that efforts to isolate Russian oil could trigger record price spikes, possibly pushing prices past $100 a barrel. Speaking at the Valdai Forum in Moscow, he said such moves, including Macron's call to see shadow fleet tankers, go against global economic interests amid rising energy demand.
Such as actions are not in the interest of the global economy, including European economies. Energy security and the stability of supply should not be held hostage to political considerations. International law must be respected. Adversaries, let's call them that, to soften the tone, demand respect for international law, and we in turn demand the same from them. There is nothing in international law that justifies the seizure of ships belonging to other countries with legal grounds, and such actions could lead to serious consequences.
And now it's time to catch up on other international news stories in the News in Brief, this time with Karim Mastfawi. Let's follow.
In Somalia, the Defense Ministry said government troops backed by Ugandan forces from the African Union mission have retaken the strategic town of Itigoli in Lower Shibuli from the Shab terror group. Ministry spokesman Abu Bakr Mohammed Hassan said the army has now regained full control of the area with the help of Ugandan defense units. The Georgian capital Tbilisi witnessed massive demonstrations on Saturday as angry protesters attempt to storm the presidential palace, prompting Georgian police forces to disperse the protesters using water cannons. This protest came in the closing moment of municipal elections boycotted by the largest Georgian opposition blocs. In Asia, Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party has elected conservative nationalist Sanae Takaishi as its new leader, putting her on track to become the country's first female prime minister. The move comes as the party tries to rebuild public trust amid frustration over rising prices and growing support for opposition calls for economic incentives and tighter foreigner restrictions. In Cordoba, Argentina, the spotlight turned to the ongoing struggle of the Sahrawi people as the documentary Refugees by director Nestor Suleiman was screened at a special event hosted by the Syrian Lebanese Club in a new step to highlight and support the struggle of Sahrawi people for freedom and independence.
And with this, ladies and gentlemen, we reach the end of our news for tonight. To catch up on any part you missed or get the latest updates, you can always visit our social media platforms. On behalf of all 24 News team, I'm Karim Zachary signing off. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.